Hi. Tonight I'm going to be going over 3 different drawings, but before I do that, I want to talk about this, some green paint that's gotten everywhere for me. And I also want to talk a little bit more about dissociative identity disorder. It is a very tricky predicament. You go through lots of different stages, and I still feel like I'm very much in the beginning of understanding this. And things that shouldn't be hard become very difficult for me, like oil paints. They're very messy. They gets all over the place. And I had this feeling not to use it yet when I'm in a different stage, when I've got my art room is in a garage, or I've got tarps and I've got the right equipment. I've got the right easels, I've got the right stuff. My art supplies are very DI as it is, you can see. And so I had this feeling not to use the oil paint, but I used it anyway to paint the words sacrificial lamb. And it's been funny to me how that green paint has gotten everywhere. It's taken over my art supplies. I find it on towels. I find it on my driver's license. It's just a representation. You can see it here on the carpet. And it's very metaphorical. It's like a symbol how the blood of the sacrificial lamb has taken over my life. How the suffering of DID, younger alters, extreme emotions from the past are very heavy. I think that's a good segue into the first character. She was a Puritan feminist. In one of my English capstone classes, we read a lot about feminists and Salem witch trials and the secular and philosophical thoughts of that time period. I really don't remember her name. I'm just saying, think that it's Sara. And this drawing, it's interesting. I hear as artists we tend to put ourselves in the people that we draw, and I can very much see myself in her. And that makes sense. I connected to the struggles of women at that time. Puritans believed that they were preordained and that their calling was already determined. And if you lived a lovely life, it made sense that maybe you were preordained, and so they had this extreme need to be perfect. I think a lot of that to put on this front of perfection, at least. And I think so much of that Puritan ancestry of our country, you can see in this American need to be great. I find it telling that our most pervasive form of social greeting requires you to put on a front of well-being. How are you? You're expected to say good. At least. Sometimes even good isn't enough for people. Just good? Couldn't you be great? I wish that we could just be what we are. I like Russian culture where you can say, how are you, shitty? Oh yeah, me too, but I don't know how to do a Russian accent. Actually, I don't think I'll have a Russian altar. But this need to be perfect as often it ends up having perverse sexual roots, because sexuality and repression and the need to be perfect, they all get connected, and the women get punished most of all. They thought of women as lesser than men. It was said that when a woman was pregnant, you could tell if it was a boy if her cheeks were rosy. If she looked dead and pale and suffering, it was likely a girl. Which I think that is reflective, because they were so obsessed with sex. Women were seen contradictorily as asexual and as temptresses, and I feel they were certainly more punished for their sexuality than men were. The last drawing I did was a letter A for Hester, but why did they not try? Why were there no A's for men? I think I'm just gonna go to the next figure here. This is Emily Dickinson. That was Emily Dickinson when she was a teen. When my professor put her up on the board, I said, "Wait a second, I'm drawing her," and he said, "Oh yes, I'm also drawn to Emily." I don't think he got what I meant, but anyways, I'm glad he left that slide up long enough for me to capture her. She is one of my favorites. I would call her the original emo in some ways. I'm looking for a book that has her poetry. She seemed stoic and very honest. I'm told she did not graduate her Christian junior high or her Christian she went to some kind of Christian school where they were supposed to bear their testimony saying they knew certain things, and she wouldn't because she didn't know. She was very much an agnostic pining in her work. I find myself wanting to quote Emily Dickinson when I go to Zupas. I want to quote like the fly. What's that poem with the fly? A fly buzzed when I die. Something somber, melancholy. Zupas is they're way too happy there. I was reading Emily's poetry last night, and I want to share this one. I felt my life with both my hands to see if it was there. I held my spirit to the glass to prove it possibler. I turned my being round and paused at every pound to ask the owner's name, for doubt that I should know the sound. I judged my features, jarred my hair, I pushed my dimples by, and waited if they twinkled back conviction might of me. I told myself, take courage, friend, that was a former time, but we might learn to like the heaven as well as our old home. I can relate to this, and that breaking down into these different voices, trying to understand what these personalities mean. I felt my life with both my hands to see if it was there. I held my spirit to the glass. I've been trying to find the strength in all this suffering. There is this sense of purpose. And when I'm conflicted and when I'm in the lower part of Maslow's hierarchy, I try to find the good things about this. What is my greater message? The last character I'm going to show is Charlotte Perkins Gillman. She's right here. And, oh no, that's not Charlotte, but that's a character, the Yellow Wallpaper. Charlotte Perkins Gillman was the author. The Yellow Wallpaper is about a woman who had postpartum depression, and her husband did not understand that. He was a psychologist, and during the Victorian era, when women were thought to be, again, lovely and virtuous and lacking with thoughts and purpose as well, and so he put her in a room with yellow wallpaper and told her not to do anything. And the worse she got, the more he told her. He was exhorting herself, and then at the very end, he comes into the room, and she has become a part of the yellow wallpaper. And he can see that she's gone mad. I'm going to read this quote here. The color is repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow turning sunlight. I couldn't explain why, but I was so drawn to this woman and her suffering and her insanity. Around that time, I went to Color Me Mine, I think with a good friend of mine, and I just painted without any direction. I knew where I was heading. I painted it yellow, and then I painted a face. And then I painted all these squiggles. And then I turned back and looked at it, and it was the yellow wallpaper. And I've been obsessed with this woman and her suffering and her art. And in writing, I've been obsessed with feminist women who have hurt. And in the next drawing, I'll expound that a little more. This yellow wallpaper, it comes up again. Anyways, Thank you for listening to my ramble of literary feminists with my alters. Yeah. Bye.